It's Kelly Clarkson here to talk all things Wayfair, the best place to buy furniture, decor, and anything else you can think of to create a home you absolutely love. I know when I shop with Wayfair, I find options for every style, whether I'm feeling boho or farmhouse, modern, traditional, French country. I can find exactly what I need for my home and more. No matter your space, style, or budget, shop Wayfair.com to make your home way more you.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Thanks for selling your car to Carvana. Here's your check.
Whoa, when did I get here?
What do you mean?
I swear it was just moments ago that I accepted a great offer from Carvana online. I must have time traveled to the future.
It was just moments ago. We do same-day pickup. Here's your check for that great offer.
It is the future.
It's the present and just the convenience of Carvana. Sorry to blow your mind.
It's all good. Happens all the time.
Sell your car the convenient way to
Carvana.
Pickup times may vary and fees may apply.
Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Must Love Books. Hello and welcome back to Must Love Books podcast. Today is release day for a food truck mystery, A Murder Most Fowl by Carmela Dutra. Carmela, how are you?
I am so good. Thank you so much, Krystle, for having me here. And I'm so excited. Yay, my book is finally in the world, and it's scary, but it's exciting. It's still kind of like hard to process.
It is always very exciting to have a release day episode on the podcast. I'd have to say that this is one of my favorite ways to connect with an author on the show is to celebrate release days because we all love new books.
It's exciting too for me to be able to share this with you and to share it with your listeners because it's here, and I really am still kind of like in that pinch me state, thinking of like, is this really happening? Is this happening? But yeah, okay, it's happening. Here we are.
So how about you tell our listeners all about A Murder Most Fowl?
So this is my debut cozy mystery novel, and it's releasing today, September 9th, from Crooked Lane Books, and I'm so excited. This is a project that I've worked on for a couple of years now, so to see it here, to have it here is just, it's very surreal. It takes place here in the Bay Area, where I'm from, Bay Area, California, and food truck culture here is really big. So that was the inspiration behind my book. So think Only Murders in the Building meets The Great Food Truck Race. That's what my book is about. It's a set of fraternal twins, Beth and Seth Lloyd, who inherit a chicken-themed food truck from their late aunt. And Beth gets the idea to enlist her truck into a cooking competition. Only the competition, the elimination round, takes on a literal meaning, and a contestant is found dead in the back of his truck. So the twins have to sleuth the case to solve the murder, and before one of them ends up on the chopping block because Beth was the last one seen having a heated altercation with our victim.
There is the mystery.
So it's very punny, especially if you love chicken wings. This book is for you. So yes, it's very funny. There is a giant chicken in the book. Her cooking inept assistant, best friend, Riley Cortez, wears a giant chicken suit to drum up business. And that's actually in the opening pages of our book. You'll actually find the main protagonist, Beth, is arrested while wearing her giant chicken suit. So that's a huge theme of my book. And there's recipes and there's a lot of comedy. So if you enjoy cozy mysteries with a dose of comedy and a lot of puns, hopefully you might enjoy this book.
I love a good cozy mystery, but I especially love a humorous cozy mystery because I am here for the puns. I love anything punny. Yes, the pun is intended every time. I love it.
Yeah, the puns are definitely intended. There have been a few that weren't intended, like when I was writing, especially because I do have a prologue that kind of sets the scene for everything, where Beth is arrested in county lockup, sitting in her giant chicken suit, waiting for her twin to come and bail her out. There are some references about poultry profanity, and that was total like accident. I didn't mean to put that in, but like, oh, this really works, poultry profanity. And then I started thinking about what is poultry profanity, and I'm like, I can use this in my real life here.
I love that, poultry profanity. I'm down for it. So what is your writing process like?
Kind of a hot mess, if I'm being honest. When I first wrote this book, I did not plot at all when I was writing it. I was like, okay, it's a mystery. That means anybody can be the killer, and I'm going to figure it out when the reader figures it out. That worked in theory, but in the end, it did not work. So thankfully, my amazing agent, Lindsay Guzzardo, really taught me how to plot. And we spent almost a year restructuring this book to tie up all the loose ends, all the plot holes. So now I'm a heavy plotter and I make sure that I am covering all points from A to Z in my outlines. It's still, my desk looks like a mess. I have these bulletin boards around me and it kind of does look like I'm trying to figure out my own crime scene. I have all these post-it notes and things tying over here and this comes over here. I also am a mom, so I just kind of squeeze in where I can as I try to have a schedule, but also keeping it fluid at the same time.
When I have especially mystery and murder mystery authors on the podcast, it's something very similar, especially like that metaphorical police board with the red ribbon everywhere, tying things together. Every author who writes some form of mystery has their version of that police board. And I love hearing about the different ways that authors connect those dots for themselves.
It's proven really helpful for me, although I do really like the little red lines. I'm thinking I'm going to do something like that. I really like that idea. I have chicken paper. So my husband, as a gift, he got me this 4-pack of chicken themed paper. That's what I use for each book. Each book has a different chicken notebook that I write with. That's where my notes go. I have 3 boards and each one has different colored paper so I know which book I'm working on right now.
Oh, I love that. So there's going to be more?
Yes, so this is the first book in the series. The first book is A Murder Most Fowl. My second book, which is going to be coming out the spring of next year of 26, is Hot Wings and Homicide. It's
Love it.
So each book is can be read as a standalone, but it is a series. If you pick up book 2, you don't have to read book 1 to know what's going on, but you will see some references back to book 1 to tie it all together. Book 2 is at a food truck festival. So again, Bay Area culture, food trucks are huge. You can't go anywhere without seeing a food truck. And we do have food truck festivals. That was the inspiration for book 2, was Foodie Land, an event that happens here. I know I think it happens in a few other areas throughout the US too. But at one time it kind of started with food trucks. And that's where the inspiration for book 2 came in, having a 3.5-day festival of just food trucks, kind of like county fair meets food trucks. And that's what book 2 is about.
Love that. That sounds amazing. I want to go.
That's my weekend. Like all the music, the deep fried food. I will eat my weight in kettle corn. We're gonna have a good time.
So you mentioned that A Murder Most Fowl includes some recipes.
These are recipes that I have tested at home. So my family is my guinea pig, and so are some of my close friends, and they have all lived to tell the tale, so they are safe. Book 2 has recipes as well. Each book will have recipes from that book. And then I also have exclusive recipes that I give out in giveaways that won't be found in the books, or even for joining up with my newsletter, you get an exclusive recipe that's not found in the book.
So for these recipes, are they all ones that you created yourself?
I do love to cook. I love to bake. My husband really loves chicken wings. And so each one has something different too. They're not all chicken wings. Each book does have a chicken wing recipe. And there's also appetizers. In my book, the truck is called Clucking Good. And it sells chicken wings, sliders, and appetizers like truffle fries, avocado fries, mac and cheese poppers. So book 1 has the mac and cheese popper recipe, and it has the Clucking Greek chicken wing recipe.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
There's gonna, again, lots of puns. There is some light romance as well. I think that is kind of typical with a lot of cozy mysteries. There's that subtle romance that starts working its way in between your main character and other characters. And there's also my main characters are twins, Beth and her twin brother Seth. So there's a lot of sibling shenanigans that are happening there. Your atypical siblings who are fighting over the most ridiculous stuff. And then her best friend, Riley Cortez, who can't cook, but is her assistant on the food truck. So there's some funny stuff that happens there with her two trying to be helpful. So if you've ever cooked with somebody who doesn't know how to boil water, you can imagine what that's like in a confined space on a cooking competition, what that must be like.
That sounds so much fun. And I cannot wait for our listeners to discover this book because I think they're going to love it.
I hope so. So, and it's, if I can make you laugh, if I can make you, honestly, if I can get any sort of emotion, it can be anger, it can be hunger, I don't care. Then that, if I've elicited an emotion, then I am happy and I've met my goal.
Hungry readers, here we go. This one's for you. So I always ask all of my authors, especially new authors, how their publishing journey came to be. We do have a lot of aspiring authors that listen to the podcast as well, and some hobbyist writers. What did your publishing journey look like?
I'm so excited to share this. So sometimes you'll see those unicorn experiences online, and that's exactly what it is. It is a unicorn experience. So originally, I started with children's STEM picture books. I was working with school districts, doing author visits, teaching workshops for children how to develop the fundamentals for storytelling, for writing, for drawing pictures. I always wanted to write more. I loved my picture books, but I did always have that desire to write something bigger. And I think with a lot of individuals, pandemic opened that up because everything shut down. We had all this time on our hands. It's like, what am I going to do? I'm at home with 2 kids. I started writing and I wrote a sci-fi, which was horrible. And I queried it to agents, still horrible, but I did get agents who requested it. I'm still shocked by that. Why I wrote a sci-fi, I don't know. But it gave me that, I guess, creative freedom to know, like, it's okay, I can do this. Because in my head, I kept holding myself back that I couldn't do it. But I tried it. I queried that sci-fi. I got a handful of full requests back, and each one came back with the same thing. They couldn't market it. The pacing was too slow, and there was too much mystery, and there was too much comedy in my sci-fi. So I actually had a couple of suggestions from agents to either try my hand at a rom-com or cozy mystery, since I was already weaving mystery elements into my sci-fi and I already had that comedy. So that was where it was like a light bulb moment. But it was also that, like, why didn't I try that first? Because 80% of what I read are mysteries and cozy mysteries. So that's where I started working on my cozy mystery. Overall, I queried literary agents for 3 years, starting with my sci-fi. And it ended up where I was almost ready to shelve my cozy mystery manuscript that I ended up signing with my agent. And that's where my dream experience came from. A lot of authors talk about their dream agents, and it's really hard to get a sense of your dream agent based off a bio. You can go through their manuscript wish list, you can see all the points that they're looking for, but until you have that interaction with them, you can't really gauge if they're going to be your dream agent. So it was the back and forth, the months of emailing Lindsay, that I was like, oh my gosh, she really is. This is my dream agent, because she got me, she got my character. She was so supportive, so patient. She asked for my full request of my manuscript, and she showed me where I was lacking, where my plot holes were, what I was missing. Because I did the best I could, but I knew it still needed work. I knew I needed help to get it further. So for Lindsay, it was, I got an R&R, revise and resubmit. And at that point, she had told me that it was going to be a pass until I fixed some of the stuff, but she left it open-ended. She's like, take as much time as you need. I'm not going anywhere. Really go through this. She gave me information, articles to read, a book to read, to really teach me what I needed about plotting. And then when I resubmitted it to her, she offered me representation. So it took a while, but even after my representation and I signed my contract, we still spent almost a year revising my manuscript to get it ready to go on submission to editors. From there, we went on submission to editors. We were on submission for about 8 weeks. And then I ended up selling to Crooked Lane in a 2-book deal. And now I'm working with them. I absolutely loved working with Crooked Lane. It's been wonderful.
That is really great. And I love how your publishing journey story really shows the importance of, 1, perseverance, and 2, how important it is to find an agent that you really just connect with and that works with you instead of just like whatever agent will take you kind of thing. Do you have any advice on things for new authors to look out for when trying to find their perfect agent?
I actually wrote a 6-part blog series called An Author's Guide to Querying. It's on my website. And you can read everything that I learned and read my mistakes. One of the mistakes that I did was I queried too soon. My manuscript was not ready, but I had that fear of missing out that an agent was going to close and I would never get a chance to get back in. So I just submitted my query and I was like, okay, I'm going to have time because she's not going to get to me anytime soon. I'll have plenty of time to make this where it needs to be. That was totally faulty thinking because within less than 24 hours, she replied asking for a full request. And I went into full panic mode because my manuscript wasn't ready. So don't rush. But in terms of looking for that dream agent, really do your due diligence, do your research, make sure that you understand what their submission guidelines are because every agent does have different guidelines. And don't ignore the red flags when you see them. Because like you mentioned, sometimes authors can start to feel like, okay, whatever agent is going to take me. But if that agent doesn't 100% support and believe in you, it's going to be really hard working together. There were a couple of instances where there were two agents in particular that there was a lot of red flags. One had offered me representation, and that agent is no longer an agent. And the biggest red flag for me was they admitted to not having finished reading my manuscript. And I was really surprised by that. I questioned, how could you offer me representation and you didn't even know how my book ended? When I asked for feedback about what type of edits needed to be done, what did we need to change to make this story better? Oh, I don't see anything that needs to be done, was the response, other than just give me a little bit more quirkiness in your story. And I knew that that wasn't going to work because I knew the book needed more help from an agent. So even though I had that offer there, I couldn't ignore those really big red flags of not giving me any editorial feedback, not having even finished reading my manuscript. And our whole meeting was very rushed too. I think it was less than 12 minutes on Zoom. Definitely, if you have those feelings of like red flags popping up, trust your gut because sometimes the term that I've seen and heard used as a smagent, like a sham agent, can do more harm to you than not having an agent at all. So make sure that you've done your research to verify that the agent is going to be the best fit for you and that they also have a track record in the industry as well.
That is all very, very important advice. Absolutely.
I really believe in transparency and I believe in giving back. I had other agents and authors helping me along the way. Like even agents who passed on my manuscript, they still gave me such helpful feedback on how to make my manuscript better. And I truly appreciate all of them and the connections that I've made. And I'm still friends with some of them. And then I've had other authors who have genuinely helped me. Like one was Ellery Adams. When I first started posting about my idea to query this cozy mystery, she read my query letter and she commented on my post and she was telling me that this is what agents are looking for. You're on track. And so she gave me some really helpful feedback and she's just such a sweet, wonderful human being. She's written over 40 cozy mysteries. So if you're not familiar with Ellery Adams, definitely check out her books if you love cozy mysteries. And yeah, so my series of this blog series for authors, it takes you through everything from what is querying? How do you do research? And I include helpful links that I used. I share what to do when you get an R&R, what to do when you get a rejection. You get the call, what happens on the call. I share my experience. And I even share part of my query letter to help authors, because I think that's also really hard, is you have spent so much time, sometimes even years on your manuscript. And how are you supposed to condense that down into a one-page query letter? That's really hard. So I shared what I did that helped because my manuscript, I received in total 28 full and partial requests on my manuscript. I knew that my query letter was solid, but I knew there was stuff that my manuscript was lacking. And I share that too, the areas that my manuscript was lacking, how agents helped me. And one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would give to anyone listening to this is if you've written anything, you are not aspiring, you are an author. So remove aspiring from your bio, remove it from your query letter because you're an author. You wrote a book. Be proud of that. Celebrate that. I'm celebrating for you and I want to be your biggest cheerleader. So anyone listening who wants to talk to me about querying, my DMs are always open. You can even send me a message on my website and I will happily talk to you about my experience and how I can help support you through your experience.
That is excellent. When it comes to querying, there is the inevitable, and that is rejections. Happens to every author ever. What advice do you have for handling rejection?
Celebrate your first rejection. because you got your rejection. That first one, you got it out of the way. So celebrate that. However that looks for you. For me, it was Chinese food from my favorite takeout restaurant. Take that as a win too, especially if it's a personalized rejection, because that means they really took the time to think about it. It happens to everyone. You can look up these stories from New York Times bestselling authors and the amount of rejections that they faced. It's not personal. I know sometimes it can feel personal, especially depending on where you're at in the process, but it's not. And I hate to use the word subjective, but that's really what the industry is. It all comes down to just timing. It comes down to personal preferences and tastes, and try not to read too much into the rejections, because each agent, it's going to be vastly different. Like I had one agent reject me because I wrote in first person point of view. And for me, that's the easiest especially because I have a lot of comedy in my book. And that's the easiest for me to do it in the first person point of view. So you're figuring out everything as Beth figures everything out. So I had an agent who said they couldn't sell my book in first person point of view, so it was a pass. And then I had another agent who said, I absolutely love that your book is in first person point of view. Those are my favorite books to read, but I don't represent this type of cozy mystery, so it's a pass. So it comes down to timing, a lot of it. I had another agent who rejected me because she had an author who wrote something similar, and she couldn't have the competition between authors, because that's what it would be. And I get that. When you get those rejections, don't take them personal, try and regroup. I'm a big believer in protecting your mental health through this, because this is a very emotional journey to get there. Don't compare yourself. Don't even compare yourself to the writer that you were 6 months ago, because you're not the same person. I turned off notifications on my email. In the beginning, when I would get an email, I would get like a little ping, but I turned that off because I didn't want to always hear that. And I would only check my work email between a set time on certain days of the week. After that, I just walked away from it. Now, I know that's not always possible for everyone, but if you're able to do something to be able to protect your mental health along the way, whether that's you don't check your email except for once a week, twice a week, or after you get that rejection, do something else to build yourself up, that's what I would recommend.
Excellent advice. And you are absolutely correct that querying, and really anything involved with writing, but querying is especially a vulnerable process. You're really opening yourself up and putting yourself out there. And rejection happens. And sometimes rejection is done in a very kind way. Sometimes rejection is just being ghosted. And sometimes rejection is harsh.
Oh, yeah, I did get that. I had an agent who he did a full request, and then within 24 hours, the reply was not for me. 3 words. That was it. I was like,
Just not for me. Okay.
not for me. I'm like, okay. A week later, I got another reply from the same agent deciding to go deeper into the reasons why, and then sharing his assistant's viewpoint. And it ended with, it was like a whole 2 paragraphs as to why this book wasn't going to work, as to why it wasn't for them. And it ended with, stop pursuing this.
Oh my goodness.
And so, I mean, you could really take that a number of ways. That could be soul crushing. That could just be like, oh my gosh, I'm done. I'm never going to touch this again. I looked at it as, you're still thinking about me a week later. I made that big of an impression on you. You may have hated it, and that's totally fine, but you're still thinking about me. So that's, that's how it is. Not everybody's going to like your work. Not every reader is going to like it either. And you have to be prepared for that.
You were living rent-free in that agent's head, rent-free for at least a week.
I did. I laughed. I really did laugh. But and that's the really weird. And like my husband's like, that's kind of weird on your part, because like the rejections never bothered me. It was I always waited for them. And I was like, okay, I got another rejection. It was more of when I got the full request of like, oh, I have a full request. And then it would be like, why are you reacting that way? And I'm like, well, because now I have to wait longer, and I don't know how they're going to react, and how am I going to do this? And that's where I would kind of spiral a little bit more, because that's where I would start to put pressure on myself. But once I adjusted how I'm viewing this, because in the end, to quote one of my favorite authors, Bianca Murray, you only need one yes. And that's all you need in this industry, is one yes. And so once I adjusted that attitude, I was like, it's okay. If they don't like it, that's okay. I wrote a book that was the best that I could do. It's a book that I'm proud of. I love it. I already know not all readers are going to like it, and that's okay. All I need is one yes, and then we'll take the next step as it comes.
So while you are in the querying trenches and you're receiving rejections and waiting for that one yes, what do you do? What does a querying writer do while kind of stuck in limbo? Do you use that time to work on a new story? Do you use that time to go on vacation and get out of here? Do you continue reviewing your current work?
I did all of the above. It's different for each person. One thing that I would recommend is get a community of support for yourself. And that can be fellow writers, that can be fellow authors on the same journey with you in the querying process. That can be your family, that can be your friends, but you need that support because writing can be very lonely. And even if it's just a group online, that gives you that outlet of somebody to talk to about it. So I had that, which was really helpful. And I chose to, while I was querying, I chose to work on other projects. And I also would take the feedback that I got from agents because I was fortunate enough to get a lot of personalized responses. And then I had to kind of sift through that to determine, okay, how do I feel about this? How is this going to help advance my story? How does this fit with what I wrote? And I had to decide what I was going to keep, what I wasn't going to keep. And I continued to revise and make adjustments along the way. And I worked on other projects. And I did take a vacation.
That sounds nice, honestly. So my next question for you is, and this is something that every author seems to have kind of a different viewpoint on, so there's really no right or wrong answer, but how many queries do you recommend authors send out at a time? I've had some suggest, just send like one or two to an agent at a time. And as you hear back, continue going down, your list at doing a couple at a time. I've had other authors say, I went and I sent out 100 in 2 weeks and just waited for them to all roll in. What advice do you have for querying authors in terms of quantity?
I think that's so personal. I will say if you only send out just a couple at a time, you have to be prepared that if you're waiting to hear back from those couple, you could be waiting a while because agents are overwhelmed with submissions. Some of them are backlogged months. Like I actually got a rejection from an agent a year after I already signed with my agent, and she had just gotten to my query. Typically, I would send anywhere between 10 to 20 at a time. That's what just worked for me. I would also try to make sure that I personalized it as best as I could for each agent, especially if they represented something that I really admired or why I felt like I would be a good fit for them. You're going to have to kind of like ebb and flow and figure out what's going to work for you. But I would recommend if you have, let's say you have a handful of agents that are like, those are your top picks. Like I desperately want to submit to them and, I hope to work with them. Save those for a little bit later. Don't let those be your very first ones because those very first queries can kind of help you to determine like what that feedback is going to be. And if all of the agents you've queried are coming back with the same feedback, then you need to stop and take a look at that because there is something there. And that might be a comment about your query letter. That might be a comment about pacing in your story or a difficulty connecting with your main character, what have you. But once you get a couple of queries out with responses, that's where I would suggest then query your preferred agents at that point. Because a lot of times, once you get a no, that's it. You don't get a second chance on that manuscript unless they give you the option for an R&R or you've done such a heavy revision that it's almost like a new manuscript.
That's excellent. Now, I know when receiving rejections, and I've been there as well, sometimes you get the form letter, sometimes you hear nothing at all, and sometimes you get actual feedback, their thoughts, opinions, or maybe even a little bit of editing in regards to what you receive back. At what point do you sit and look at different suggestions and notes, and how do you decide what to incorporate for the next submission?
There was a lot of times where an agent would point something out and I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I have a really bad habit of slipping in between tenses. So I hadn't realized that I was slipping in between past and present. So that got pointed out to me and I went through and I tried to correct that as best as I could, make sure that I caught everything. Then I had some other agents who pointed out like, it kind of gets there's like a little bit of a sag in the middle. There's that lull that you need to try and tighten that area up. be mindful of info dumping. So I took those type of constructive criticism, and that's what I worked with. The ones where it was more the personal criticisms of they didn't like my main character for this personal reason, I kind of let that go. Opinions are like armpits, everybody has them and most of them stink. So you have to kind of shift through what's going to be the best and what you feel is, yeah, that's on point. I see where they're saying versus like, nope, that's just their opinion and it's not going to matter and that's okay.
Do you have any other final pieces of advice for querying authors or resources for authors to look into?
Don't be afraid when you see an agent is closing to submissions. Agents will reopen. Take my experience here. I rushed because I was afraid that an agent was going to close and I would miss that window. And I shot myself in the foot. Slow down. It's okay. It's not a sprint. It is a marathon. The whole publishing industry works at the speed of a glacier. Everything is slow. You're always going to be waiting. Even once you sign with your agent, you're going to be waiting. You sign with your publishing house, you're going to be waiting. It's just part of the process. Some resources that I really found were so amazing for me was Query Tracker, because Query Tracker has a free option. You have the paid for option and then you have the free option. So the free option allows you to track one manuscript at a time. And so on there you can see where your query's at. You can see who you've queried. It tracks your rejections for you if those agents use Query Tracker. And then they have the paid for version where you can track multiple submissions and see where you're at over the course. Manuscript Wishlist is another one that's really good. It can really help you to see what agents and editors are looking for. And don't be afraid to stalk an agent on social media. I did that. I stalked several agents on social media because they'll tell you there what they're looking for. Like they'll share their manuscript wish list and they will also usually tell you this is not a full comprehensive list. This is giving you a screenshot of what I'm looking for. And you'll find agents on social media who are like, I'm really looking for this type of high fantasy book. I'm looking for this type of laugh out loud rom-com or a nail biter thriller. And maybe they were an agent that wasn't on your list before, but you start seeing their social media feed and you realize, oh, wow, we could be a good fit. Take their information and query them if they're open.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your advice for querying authors. I think that this is something that a lot of our listeners will find useful and can relate to. So that is very much appreciated to have. And if anyone is looking for a more comprehensive guide to querying, you can go to Carmela Dutra's blog, which is at carmeladutra.com/blog. And you can take a deep dive into her entire series. She shares her stories, she shares more resources, so it's a great place to check out if you are looking to get more questions answered about querying.
Thank you so much, Krystle, for having me. This was so much fun chatting with you. And I also hope that your listeners found it valuable and helpful for them too.
And I want to thank you again, Carmela, for joining me today for your release. Once again, A Murder Most Fowl, a food truck mystery, is available everywhere. We've got food trucks, we've got recipes, we've got chicken puns, and we've got some mystery.
And a splash of romance in there too.
Romance and whodunit. Love it. Thank you again so much for joining me today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening. This has been Must Love Books. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon under @MustLoveBooksPodcast. Thank you and happy reading.